And welcome to another edition of the Throwing Bagels podcast. Kevin Mooney here with you alongside Chris Douglas. Hey, Chris.
Evan, how are you?
I am wonderful. You?
Um, I'm back from vacation and I'm
Yeah.
not very happy to be back from
Oh,
vacation from the West Coast in
no.
beautiful Arizona where it was in the 70s every single day I was there, and now it's not.
Yeah, you came home just in time.
Perfect
Just in
timing.
time. Jason Hamo with us as well. Hey, Jason.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
I am doing a lot better than you guys are, apparently.
Yeah. Listen, as we speak, it's Monday, and the Oswego County area, Fulton, Central Square, they're like slated to get drilled. Like we're talking 3 to 4 feet of snow over the next couple of days. Yikes! So yeah, better there than where we are, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And I mean
guess.
we could also be where our next guest is, so
I know, absolutely. And speaking of our next guest. It's our genuine pleasure to welcome in a fellow Laker fan, by the way, which we will get to over the course of this podcast. He's the director of communications for SUNY Oswego, also teaches media copywriting and some other courses on campus, and has a master's degree in history from SUNY Oswego. Please welcome in Tim Nekritz. Hey, Tim.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure not to be out shoveling, which has been my life for now. I'm told it's a good workout, but I don't know. I don't know if that benefit has made its way to me yet. So
Yeah. That's an old wives' tale.
I believe it.
Are you there in Oswego, Tim?
You betcha. I'm looking down my street. The whiteout has subsumed, so I can see the green lights of McCarthy's bar in the distance. But it's been a day, I can tell you that much.
Oh man.
At least you have a bar close by, though.
Oh yeah,
That's true.
definitely. Kind of uphill, but you know what are you gonna do? So.
Every year, Tim, you'll be teaching a media copywriting class in the fall, in the spring semester, excuse me. And not the case this year, but in the past, when you've had that course, you've given students homework to watch the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
And to watch the commercials and to come away with some examples of effective advertisements, effective ads, and come and bring it into school class and talk about it. So you mentioned recently though that some of the ads these days just aren't as effective as they once were, maybe. So why is that?
I just feel like they're going for spectacle more than anything else. Like I teach media copywriting BRC 328. Except this semester I was given a chance to teach BRC 223, which has a long and fancy name. It is called digital storytelling. And they're just not, some of them are just not telling stories. It's just I'll use the Bud Light ad as an example, the subdivision or whatever it was. It's just like it was more like how many celebrities can we fit into 30 seconds or whatever. Or there was actually the 1990s, we all remember it well, the dot-com boom when every website had to have their ad on the Super Bowl. And at the end of it, it was like, what is that website for? And I feel like we're coming back around to that. And part of it, I think, is that they are used to producing things for social media that are just trying to get attention, but they're not doing a great job of telling stories. And as I mentioned on LinkedIn, there were a few I thought that were really good this year, at least. The Little Farmer, the Lay's potato one with the
Mm.
little girl um, growing the potato plant, which apparently is so easy, even I could do it, allegedly. Because that just told a little story, but it also connected to Lay's, and Lay's works with farmers. It isn't this all cute and that type of thing. And then there was Dream Job, the guy who was using oh wow, I'm going to remember, forget which one, the Google Pixel, where he was basically talking about, see, he was studying up for his dream job, but really thinking about the most important thing he does is be a parent. And as a parent, of course, that reaches right into your heart and grabs you. Not that I am their whole demographic. But it showed both showed the product and had a good story. And then of course on a different wavelength, a different level of production, the Nike ad, the Just Win
Mm.
uh, or Go Win ad with all with all the women talking about all these things that women are always told and about, how they've overcome all of that in a subtle or not so subtle way. But those all had stories and they all had a purpose and they all connected to the product. So many of these things, it's just like, oh, look, it's Jason Momoa or whoever was available at the time. And it's like, okay, we're going to throw this person in. Or like they'll take a really annoying Saturday Night Live character and make them a really annoying commercial character. And it's like, well, that's fantastic. And I hated that ad. I will tell my students, if you're producing an ad, you want to be seen as that good friend that you want back, not that crazy uncle you don't want in your house anymore. And I think too many places just were going for the spectacle, the sizzle, not the stakes. So uh, I still will see good ones once in a while. One of my students mentioned the Clydesdale ads, the Budweiser ads. You always look for those with the Clydesdale. I think they didn't do one year, and everyone was up in arms. And admittedly, there's not a lot connecting that to Budweiser, but when you see the Clydesdales, you know it's a Budweiser ad, and hopefully you feel good by the end of the ad.
Do you have a favorite commercial, not necessarily just from this past Super Bowl, but all time Super Bowl? Like the one that kind of sticks out for me, that's always stuck out for me, is that the frogs with the Budweiser. I don't know if you guys remember that one. That was one of my favorite commercials of all time.
Yep.
Did you have one that kind of sticks out like that?
Yeah, and it's unfortunately almost like a historian answer, which is the first big Super Bowl commercial, which was the Apple 1984 ad with Big Brother. Um, and basically see why 1984 won't be 1984. That introduced a computer, a personal computer, which was unheard of at that time. It was directed by Ridley Scott, who did a little movie called Blade Runner also. It was for the longest time the most expensive commercial, mostly in special effects. It connected with the Olympics, had a hammer thrower in there, connected with George Orwell's 1984. And it created the Super Bowl ad. The Super Bowl always had a big following, but until that came along, the idea of doing a big Super Bowl ad was unheard of. And I mean, the problem is I show my students that now, and I'm like, well, like 40 years ago, this was like blew us out of our seats. Now it looks crappy. So really that is the one that stands the test of time just because it really was the original Super Bowl ad. But also thinking about how it just changed so many different things. It changed America. Personal computers were not a thing before them, and then after it was.
So in your role as director of communications at Oswego, does it primarily involve external communication, or is there an internal element to it as well?
A little bit of everything, really. Basically, about an hour ago, maybe 40 minutes ago, I got the call that we are going remote only classes again today. It's not a luxury that we had when we went to school,
I
obviously.
was just talking to someone about that earlier today. I was telling my wife about
Yeah,
I saw that posted on like linked on Twitter or
yeah.
Instagram or something.
It's happening again. The person in charge of my social media, my assistant director, is like, we're running out of snow photos. We got to take more. But yeah, so basically that comes across. I put it out in all these different ways, like New York Alert and all campus emails, and then connect with all the radio, with all the TV stations and radios. That's all an interface now. You don't speak to a human being, which is just as well. But then I also produce a daily newsletter called Oswego Today, which has the calendar of events, which is very popular, stories that I write, which may or may not be popular. Um, and so basically, it lets people know what's going on the campus. So there might be really cool stories about things happening, it might be announcements. I just got one saying, hey, can you say that the health center is remote tomorrow? Or just upcoming deadlines coming up, like for tomorrow, there's something about nominating a senior for the Outstanding Senior Award, and a couple other stories. One of my interns wrote, one that I wrote, and so it's an online daily newspaper. You remember what newspapers are? So there is that, but then there's also external relations. So there are sending out of news releases, working with TV stations that still exist, occasionally radio. But like for example, last year, and you all are probably aware of this, the first when WTOP did their first all women sportscast, that was a huge deal. And I worked with every local TV station. Not all of them showed up on time when they said they were going to. but that's how that is. But I worked with all of them as far as pitching it and then working with them, or like when the eclipse happened in April. We had two TV stations live. We had Syracuse.com's um, science reporter was live, and we had all these other people inquiring because we were perfectly in the zone that was coming through. And plus, you could be in downtown Syracuse or you could be by a lake. Where are you going to be if it's a nice day? Not today. Nobody's in a rush to come up here today. But so like that's an example of like a really cool thing that I was able to pitch and get a lot of attention for. And obviously, when you're and because we had students involved in putting up weather balloons because there was some funding from NASA and National Science Foundation that they're working on a project for, or in the case of the all women broadcast is showcasing how, the great work that our broadcasting majors are doing. So, that type of thing is really, really enjoyable. Um, you know, telling, dealing with the media and saying, hey, class canceled, classes are remote again today. Are you sick of us yet? But like I said, I don't normally deal with human beings, so they don't get sick of me about that. But yeah, good times.
Do
And
you?
sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're saying. Sorry.
Okay, I was remembering the blizzard of 2007 when Oswego County got like 100 inches in 6 days, and everybody
It's
like
insane.
yeah, CNN was here. Jim
I
Cantori,
remember
we got
that.
Jim
Yeah.
Cantori.
If Jim Cantori shows up, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be rough. Yeah.
Yeah. And also the New York Times was up. And actually it was funny because it was one of my college colleagues from the stylist at Brockport. And he quoted me because like we had canceled classes 3 days that week. And my big quote in the front page of the New York Times is, I don't think we'd ever done that before, said Tim Nekritz. And so yeah, that's my claim to fame. And I'm like, I've said so many things that sounded more intelligent than that.
Has this men's ice hockey game between Oswego and Cortland been keeping you on your toes? I think it's been rescheduled now a third time. So-
The biggest game of the season keeps getting rescheduled.
I mean, if it was the whiteout, that would have been something else. But of course, the most famous whiteout game, of course, was the one that got postponed. And of course, was it Babson? Was it Babson? The one their bus hit the sign at Canales.
Was that an NCAA tournament game? I feel like that
NCAA
was
tournament game.
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like in the maybe early 2000s, I want to say.
Yeah,
Like
because that
early,
was when because I was trying to remember if that was when
was
our
that the
run.
championship season? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I think it was championship season.
I vaguely remember that, but I can't the year off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was Babson. I normally know this, and I'm blanking on it.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, and so basically they were staying at Canales, or they couldn't. The game didn't happen. It wasn't happening until the next day, and so they're staying at Canales, and or they're eating dinner at Canales, and somehow the bus was left in neutral, and it hits the sign at Canales,
Oh.
and so no big thing. And then the hashtag during the game was a lot of students were saying this one's for Canal hashtag this one's for Canales. That got the most media coverage that year. You're right, it was not the championship year because that was that year that got the most media coverage because it was just so weird. And every outlet, AP probably has something called weird news. And so it was like, hey, the Babson bus hit the sign of Canales in Oswego, and that was like hilarious. It would have gone viral, if social media's had been a thing. And so that just because I'd go through LexisNexis and everything, and I'm like, this hit every market. I mean, the only other time we've done every market is when we won the championships. This was like the second most popular thing ever. So yeah, let's not do that again. Let's go on a championship run, but let's not have because there's a nor'easter too, and those are even worse to shovel.
So we have to chat about the Hewitt Hall
Yeah.
renovation, and it's hard to believe, man. We're only about 6 months away from that building opening
Yeah.
to everyone. So recently, Oswego put out a video online showing the various rooms throughout the building. Can you take us behind the scenes there? How was your team able to go in and capture all the footage within that short time frame?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the one we just posted one a couple weeks ago because there was 200 days till opening, which means we're inside 200 days now. Flying.
It's
Um,
crazy.
But yeah, so what happened is that it's in different, like the second floor is the most finished. So the video you would have seen was mostly second floor spaces. And then the ground floor, a lot of that is the ballroom, which is being refurbed. If any of you ever like had to take photos in the ballroom, you know it was one of the worst places to take pictures because it was like dim and yellow lighting. Looks a lot better already. The natural lighting's good, although natural lighting then washed things out. It couldn't be backlit. And then there's something called the collaborative core, which has a skylight, and that is phenomenal. So, um, essentially, I've been working with Jen Knapp, who's the dean, and Devin Reese, who is our representative with the contracting companies, because it's still under construction, so you can't just randomly walk in. Um, and so I basically took our videographer, Jim Kearns, our photographer, Jim Russell, and Emma, again, who's our social media person, assistant director. And I said, okay, let's try to find a date that'll work for us to go in because we want to do stuff for social media. We want to, Russell got a bunch of photos, so we're doing some more photo galleries. Emma's doing stuff on social media. Kern's put together that video that you saw. Um, just to try to get, get a little bit of excitement because on the one hand, you're reaching out to um, teenagers and trying to get them say, hey, here's our future broadcast home. It's kind of hard because there's no equipment in there, but it looks nice and there's some cool things there. And then to alums, and most alumni will remember the ballroom, obviously, because that's what I posted on my own LinkedIn because everyone knows the ballroom. And the problem was when we were there, we couldn't get really good shots of the collaborative core. But then I went back with the gym and we got some more photos of that. But also it's just to let people know, what's going on in alumni and also donors, because obviously they're looking for people to name spaces and, help buy equipment and everything else that needs to go in there. So it's supporting the university advancement as well. That being said, it was just plain fun to be in there and just see the progress that's been made, and then to let people in on that little behind the scenes, because the bottom floor, which is a lot of the broadcasting stuff, is coming along nicely. And so I've just been really impressed with what I've seen and hopefully get back in a couple months and get some even more updated stuff that I can pass along because it's not just a building, like we're renovating a building, but it's not about the building. It's about the fact that it's a place where people are going to be learning. I really look forward to it. Just going in there, even with it empty, just seeing the progress was really, really exciting.
So on top of, the things you're doing, you're with Hewitt Hall, you create overhead shots with drones. And recently we saw one of the ones that came to me before we reached out to you. I sent it to the guys and I saw this on Instagram of the one with the lake.
Yeah.
And I thought it was amazing. Just
Mhm.
seeing the footage of the lake, with all the ice on it and everything like that, and showing it to people that have never seen Oswego in the winter and they've only seen Oswego in the summertime. you know um the location, just seems perfect for kind of any of these types of shots. I'm sure in the summer you get some really good shots as well. What's the reaction like from followers once they see these videos posted online?
Oh, they're huge. Basically, we have it to the point there's pretty much called a flyover Friday now, and those are often our best performing things. The post about going remote are, getting a lot of engagement as well. If we said cancel classes, it might be higher, but we can only do but yeah, so Jim Kearns, who is our video production coordinator, he on his own initiative, before drones were everywhere, got his license, got a drone. I've had to buy him a few as they upgrade. He hasn't broken that many, thankfully. But they're insured now, I believe. But so he just loves doing those flyovers, and we've been doing them for several years, and they always do really well. To the point that I keep saying, are people ever going to get sick of flyovers and drones? The answer is no at this point. And so like every Friday we try to have a different flyover thing. And so he got a couple of the lake that when it was frozen, which was great. And then obviously doing it in the summer. Our first really, really big video on Facebook was he did a flyover during the fall. And what's more beautiful than the Lake Ontario and Oswego in the fall when the leaves are changing. And that just got a massive, that was our first, quote unquote viral um video on Facebook just because people loved it and passed it along and passed it along and passed it along. And people were like, oh my God, what is this place Oswego? What is this magical land? So I like those a little bit better than the shots of winter, but the shots of winter are beautiful too. But you know, we're tired of it now. It's bad.
I mean,
But that being said, I'm sure there'll be a drone shot involving winter on Friday, and people are gonna love it. Um, I will just, I'll like it for my account and then never want to see it again. But no, that's Jim is really, really good at that. And we were doing that for other colleges where, I mean, it's standard. If you're at a college, you got to have a drone operator or two. And he just got that ball rolling, and it's just kept going. And the idea of Flyover Fridays, which one of my colleagues had, was definitely has been successful. And so we've stored up a lot of footage, and just a different. Obviously, you could say it's a flashback Friday, and here's something that isn't snow. I'm actually talking to somebody about that just for therapy at this point. But yeah, people like them, and they always try to have a different perspective. So those have been really good, and they get shared a lot. And of course, obviously, getting shared gets people who don't follow you to follow you. And that's part of the game, is to get people who don't know what Oswego is finding out about Oswego, especially if they have kids considering college, or if they are a kid considering college. And again, to show off the campus beauty, that's really one of our value added. And I say this while I look at a whiteout outside of my house. But really, one of the special things about Oswego, as you all know, is that it's such a beautiful natural setting. There is no other um, college on a Great Lake in New York State. We're the only one. So
I mean, I think for someone who lives, in New Jersey right now, but I'm also, but being from, the New York metropolitan area, we don't get as much snow, right? And to be able to see what's going on up there in the winter time, and even though I know of it, obviously, but like to show it to other people and say,
yeah,
look, this is what I went to college with. This is
yeah,
basically what we dealt with, kind of stuff,
yeah.
to let them see it, because you can explain it to them all you want, but a visual says so much more. So to be able to show that kind of stuff around, especially like the lake and things like that, I think is awesome.
Yeah, our webcams are very popular. When I saw the web today, I'm like, I'm gonna check the webcams. There's two of them on YouTube. There's one from Hewitt, or one from Hart Hall, and one from Shinneman. We have national networks reach out to us, Fox, Weather Channel. They say, can we use this with credit? And I'm like, absolutely. And so one of my friends in North Carolina was like, hey, I just saw SUNY speak on the Weather Channel. I'm like, let me guess, there was a bunch of snow on the webcam. Like, yeah, I missed this week. I'm like, you don't. You don't miss the snow. You miss the speed. You miss all of the speed if you want. You don't miss the snow. But yeah, so like we get natural national coverage just because of our webcams and that type of thing. And like you said, the flight, and I'll tell Jim this tomorrow. The flight over Lake Ontario with all the broken ice. You can't get that almost anywhere. There was an influencer actually got a hold of us because she did something too, where she and her husband or boyfriend had gone to the lakeshore, and then they did some drone stuff too. That was really cool because it's hard to beat. It's a very unique, because again, how many places can offer this up? So yeah, we've been very happy with that's going. I'm glad that you all are enjoying it as well.
Well, when you talk to Jim, tell him I said hello, because we used to work together at Channel 9 way back when. Because
Okay.
Jim was a news photographer at Channel 9 for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and to have a person like that on your staff, it's got to be an incredible resource.
Yeah. Well,
I
he is
smell I smell a new guest.
yeah, there you go. Oh my gosh, he'd be great. Yeah, the he was so well regarded at Channel 9 that like once in a while it's like, hey, this thing happened. We have Kern's video. Do you want to do a VOSOT with it and that type of thing? So they will always take his video.
Mhm.
We had a Micron event up here, and Channel 9 wanted to interview our president, President Wosu. And they said, but can we get Kern's video? I'm like, of course you can get Kern's video to go with it. Um, but yeah, so he is the master, and this will not surprise Kevin because I know Authority was. When I interviewed him for the job, he had 3-point lighting in his home office, and he blew a fuse. But he got back on and like he takes his camera, he takes his phone and he shows me. He's like, see, I had 3-point lightning. I'm like, that is a prepared man. That's a man who knows what he's doing. So
That's a
well,
TV cameraman for you right there.
yeah. But yeah, I will definitely tell him you said, hey, Kevin, that's cool.
Sure, and that we will be reaching out at some point to book
Fantastic.
him on
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so and I know this is an audio only podcast, but we'll put this on YouTube later. But there's another thing that the four of us can agree on is that we are big Lakers fans of the hockey team, the men's and the women's. So we're all repping our Oswego jerseys. Yeah, there we go.
I actually don't own a jersey,
It's
surprisingly enough.
That is surprising, Jason. That's
We
very
gotta get you
and
one.
disappointing,
It
actually.
really is. I'm
Yeah.
very disappointed in myself. I don't know why, but I've just never bought one for some reason.
Well, one of us on this podcast who has like 20 jerseys can maybe send one to you.
Oh, maybe. So Tim, how far back do you go with the Laker hockey program?
Well, would have been I moved in town in the 90s, and I think somewhere late 90s. This jersey that I'm wearing, then Kevin has a similar one. The Palladium Times, which is where I worked for a couple years after that, was having like they're doing this a fundraiser for newspapers and education that puts newspapers in the schools. And there was a Laker jersey package or a Laker package that included this jersey and season tickets, and a couple other things I don't even remember. But so I got season tickets to the Lakers when they played at Romney, and like we'd go once in a while, and it was just a crazy, crazy atmosphere there. And I wasn't even a hockey fan growing up because I grew up in the Syracuse area, and Syracuse didn't have a minor league hockey team. And I didn't have cable, so I knew what hockey was. I knew who Wayne Gretzky was, but it wasn't really till I got to Oswego and started going to these games, it became, somewhat addictive. I can speak for all of you there.
Yes.
I was going faithfully to Romney. And then when Murano opened up, um, the women's team came back for the 2006 season, and I somehow was put on the steering committee to help bring that back. And then Diane Dillon took over as the coach. Next thing I know, she's living across the street from me and asked me to stay connected with the team as a faculty mentor. A faculty mentor just kind of helps out in other ways because I wasn't going to really solve a lot of problems that they might have. So I had season tickets. So I immediately got season tickets for me and several of my friends at Murano. I think a group of 14 of us had a block of tickets. No, 18 had a block of tickets. So like there was a new atmosphere there, but the women's team, even starting out, they were pretty good for a brand new team. And now just came out today that they're ranked fourth in the country. They're ranked ahead of Plattsburgh. They're 1-1-1. They each won and they tied with Plattsburgh. And now they go to play Cortland. Cortland was a top 10 team this weekend too, as this is being taped. And that could do a lot, but I know their road had always been blocked. When they started in the ECAC West, they had Plattsburgh, they had RIT, and they had Elmira, and any of those teams could win the national championship in any given year. So they haven't been to the NCAAs, and then this year they could get into the NCAAs without even winning with a tournament, and hopefully they still will. But so they've come a long way. But it's been hard because men's hockey has a following. And like a lot of times they would have, okay, well, there's two men's games and two women's games, and people might pick, the two men's games or not be able to go to all of them. And so it's been building a fan base slowly, but they're all the teams, as you well know, are very great in the community. They've got the big brother, little brother, little big sister, little sister program. They do so much community service. Ed, as you know, is very generous with his time. Diane and now Mark, now that he's the coach, make sure that Lakers out in the community doing good things. So a lot of these people know them just from the things that they volunteer at and they come to the games. But yeah, so it's been great to watch the women have a really good season. And obviously the men are not out of it yet. They've had some bumps in the road, but as long as they beat Plattsburgh, that's important. But eventually, when they play this Cortland game, hopefully they'll win that as well. So they'll be right in the hunt. It's going to be It's going to be a tough climb for them. They're going to have to beat some good teams to get in the tournament, but again, their hockey games are still an experience.
With the women's hockey team, is there a buzz on campus? Because I mean, they are an excellent hockey
Yeah.
team. Is there a buzz, or is there a way we can get a buzz on campus?
Yeah, it's definitely increasing right now. It's hard to get the whiteout game level buzz, speaking of
Yeah.
Plattsburgh level buzz. But it's definitely there. The crowds are picking up. I'm seeing their stuff on social media doing well, especially when you announce you're the fourth ranked team in the country. That's hard for anybody. Because that's probably the highest that anybody's been in a while. But I think it's cool that we don't have college football, but hockey is our college football. So it's been great to see the women get a following, get a little bit of that buzz, and then hopefully if they keep going, and certainly if they make the NCAAs, that's gonna be huge.
Tim, you mentioned that you started following the Lakers back in the 90s, so I think you're pretty well familiar with the throwing bagels tradition,
Yeah,
right, in Romney.
yeah.
What now we have to ask, have you thrown a bagel? And what do you
I have
think of
not
the tradition?
I have not thrown a bagel. The only thing I will throw on the ice are stuffed animals when we do the Toys for Tots. Um, the bagel tradition, it's funny because I've met three different people who've taken credit for starting it. One person said it was very purposeful and would feed the birds. Another person said, well, we were at the dining hall, we walked out and there was some like bagels. And so we grabbed them because we were hungry and then they decided to throw them and then said they're feeding the birds. And there's a million stories about it. But I was there for the last bagel game. And anybody who was there would have been for the ending of the tradition because we were playing Plattsburgh. We were down by 2 goals. We scored a goal, and we'd already scored the first goal, and the rest would tolerate the bagels for the first goal, and they tolerate the stupid tennis balls that the Plattsburgh fans would throw. And so we score this goal, and I think we got it to 3-2. And one measly bagel I see go fluttering over the ice. And it's like slow
You're
motion.
like,
We're all
no.
like, "No." And one of the hockey players ran, he got to it, scooped it up, but the ref saw it. Refs gave us a penalty. A few seconds later, Brockport scores a goal. And it was SUNYX championship. And boom, it was kind of what John Thompson said about Archibald Stadium, or the place that SU played before the Dome. The last game they played, Georgetown beat them, and John Thompson said, "This building is closed." And I guess Bob Emery could have said the same thing because that was stupid. One stupid bagel got that penalty, lost the momentum. Plattsburgh scored. We couldn't come back, and the building was closed, and that was it. So I'm glad that the bagels aren't a tradition anymore. But that being said, I'm glad that as a fan of folklore and a fan of Laker hockey, you keep it alive, and that's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
When the Lakers won the national title in 2007, we mentioned earlier there was no streaming really back then, right? It was what considering what it is today. Um, and I know for me watching it, it was like watching it on the computer and then waiting for the buffering to stop and screaming, "Stop! Trying to watch the game," and hoping I didn't miss that final goal in
Yeah.
overtime. But what was it like to be part of Oswego's public affairs department, trying to follow their run to that title?
I think I was on campus because I'm trying to remember because I remember the semifinal, the crazy game that was like 5-4. What was it? Man, no, the Panthers. Oh my God, I'm gonna forget this.
It was
But
Middlebury, I believe they beat, right?
Middlebury, yeah, Middlebury. And we were watching that. One of my friends hooked up his computer to the big screen at the press box. We can only tell someone scored if everybody raised their hand. We couldn't see the puck at all. But we cheer when we saw the Lakers raise their hands and be upset when we saw Middlebury raise their hands. And then I was watching this on campus. I'm trying to remember someone hooked up something to a TV there in one of the dorms. And so I watched that and was like, okay, cool. We were ready. We had, a photo we could put up and an announcement and that type of thing. And then the other side of that is that I made a few NCAAs as a media correspondent, social media. They would allow you to do social media. You couldn't do play by play, because that was a purview of the NCAA. You could say if someone scored or whatever, or you could say,
Mm.
"Oh, that was a great, that was a great check," but you weren't really supposed to, take away from the broadcast. And when we played um, Wisconsin Eau Claire in the finals, all of us in the press box. So the people like Ryan Maloney, who was stringing. There were a lot of people who are in the business now. We were up on them, and we were sure that we were going to win that game. To the point that I was mentally thinking, okay, well, wait, what am I going to use for the headline? Which photo am I going to use? And then suddenly it was like the third quarter, or the third period, everything fell apart.
Mm.
And I will talk to people, I will encounter people. Um, Years later, and they're like, we thought we were going to win that game. It was heartbreaking, because obviously had gotten a championship yet since, and we had that run of 4 or 5 years in a row going to Frozen Four when it was in Lake Placid. That was great. Opportunity to go to Lake Placid. Obviously, we finally won it out west. Garen Weisweber's goal, which I more or less did catch. No buffering on that one, thankfully. That was good. Um, but um, but yeah, so it was really interesting and really cool. Like we would like work with a stringer or that type of thing because Rice Weber's goal, I can't even remember who took it. I think it was a freelancer out there who RSID had been connected with. But yeah, it made it a lot harder. You couldn't even follow the games on Twitter or whatever. Um, so it's that has changed a lot for the better, but also as we know as Laker fans, no disrespect to other schools, but the WTOP broadcasts are so much better than some of the other ones that I watch. And again, that comes back to just having a great broadcasting program. Obviously, that didn't exist. NYO was doing games for a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, Back then, I know they were on the road with them, and so at least that was you could listen to that. You know, nerve-wracking. It was easier to watch it. But yeah, obviously that's changed a lot. The idea that you can dial up your phone and get a really good picture is just so different, so amazing.
Tim, you mentioned we have a couple of more questions. So you mentioned before the podcast, you did some research on SUNY Oswego as part of their sesquicentennial back in 2011. So you were trying to get a book together.
Mhm.
Ultimately, the book, unfortunately, due to publishing issues, was never published. But when you did some of your research, what kind of interesting tidbits did you come away with?
Well, it was interesting. It was neat to look at the past. I mean, one of the people who proved it, one of the readers was, I didn't know you're such a sports fan because in 1909, the Oswego team at the time, the Oswego Normal School, they went to the equivalent of the NCAA championships. It was the AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union. The NCAA didn't even exist. And they went to Chicago, and this was a team, they beat Yale by a score of 21-19. It was supposed to, and the one person, the New York Times reported on it, said it was a really ugly game, as you can imagine, at 21-19. Like people were fouling out. There was a brawl at some point. I don't know. But this was it. And they went to Chicago for the championship, and they heard it was rigged, that they wanted a Midwestern team to win. And a lot of Oswego alumni were there because Chicago was the second city. So many people were there teaching and that type of thing. And so they lost suspiciously. It was amazing because they couldn't see the clock. And so, like, they thought there was about a minute left. The other team scored to take its first lead, and suddenly they blew the buzzer, said, "Oh, game's over." And it was like,
Oh,
"Oh, this is suspicious." But yeah, and then just going back and looking at the different runs and the team that Steve Levy was covering it, and they went to the finals because they went to the finals, and Plattsburgh was a host team, and they beat Guy Bear in goal for no, not Hobart, Hamilton College. They
mm,
beat him like 6-4 in this totally crazy game on the way there. And then they go to Lake Placid for the Frozen Four. And the coach of St. Cloud State that they played in the semifinals was a guy by the name of Herb Brooks. there was no miracle for Herb that time, as Oswego beat him, and then they lost to Plattsburgh in the finals, which more or less cemented the rivalry there. Because then Plattsburgh had to vacate the title because there were some recruitment violations, but
Mhm.
Oswego was not named the champions at that time. And then of course, reading up on and of course we all saw Romney Fieldhouse for the people for the listeners who never saw Romney Fieldhouse. It was his former drill hall that was came from Camp Shanks outside of Newburgh downstate. Um, and it looked like an airplane hangar. And basically, they put boards in, they turned it into a rink. And this was not an uncommon thing for SUNYs if they could find any sort of surplus thing. But and people refer to it as a barn, and they might as well because it was kind of cold, and the crowds were very, very rowdy, especially in the 80s, especially when the drinking age was 18. And people were fortified when they got there because you'd park in the Romney lot or take the bus there or walk, and the winds, as we were discussing earlier, were horrible. So I guess people try to numb their senses in some ways. But at one point, as Kevin was alluding to, I found that the penalty boxes weren't even in the rink. They were outside the rink. They were next to the Oswego rooting section. So if you took a penalty, God help you, you're down there and they're calling you every name in the book, hopefully not throwing things at you. And you're just out there in this cold little bench with the Oswego student section right next to you. And it's like nobody would want to take a penalty. And there were accounts, there was a great article in Oswegonian, um, that other teams did not want to come and play us. Although it's interesting because like we would also there was a lot more flexibility. Like one came, Army came in, and the Lakers beat Army, and then they cheered them as they went off the ice. They were like, hey, it's an Army. We respect them, even if we were cheering against you for 2 hours and that type of thing. And of course, if as you've seen the trophy cases in the Murano Campus Center, like they would have the Genesee tournament or the Schlitz tournament, and basically the trophy would be a beer can in the middle of this trophy. And it's so 1980s. It's so amazing. Genesee, the good old Jenny green can. And so it's just really another world there. I don't, it's not like I miss it too much. I enjoy the fact that the seats are comfortable and that there's heat in the Marano Campus Center and that there's not a bad seat in the house. I used to work commencements in Romney, and as there was weren't a lot of good seats in the house because the speakers were not set up for that. The speakers were there for the stadium seating. And we have people on the floor and they couldn't hear anything because there were no speakers. Like, you turn it up? And if you turn it up, it was too loud in the seats. At least with Murano, it's built so that you can have things in the arena like commencement and you won't be freezing, probably. Um, and so it's certainly an improvement. But I'm just glad that I did, as you all did, get to experience Romney because it was just it was something else. It was a type of experience that maybe every hockey fan should have at some point, some sort of barn like that somewhere. But that's part of the legend, the legacy of hockey at Oswego.
So there's always been folklore that Oswego had a football team and someone died and we got rid of the football team. Is that true? Did we actually ever have a football team?
We've had a few football teams over the years. The thing is, it's a really expensive sport. Usually what kills it are budget cuts because like the first time I show somebody a photo of a Oswego football team, their mind is blown. It's like, but I was looking because like there's pictures of Max Zeal, the famous Max Zeal, like with like football players. I don't know if he ever actually coached them or just because he was Max he showed up. And so like they would only be there for like 2, 3, 4 years. They couldn't gain traction because hockey's an expensive sport, football's an expensive sport. Number of people, insurance, equipment. And so I feel like this like and you didn't really have the following. I mean, I went to Brockport. Brockport had They had a football team at the time, not a very good one. But we went there. We went there and watched the games. And but then hockey, their hockey program, you couldn't, you know, if you were sitting in Tuttle at Brockport, chances are you're outnumbered by visiting Oswego fans. So they just never really had it. They never really got off the ground because it seemed like I kept going through and like, oh, the football team's here, and then 3 years later, I can't find any existence of it anymore. So I think part of it was just trying to make that investment. It seemed, and New York State just went through the every 10 years. One of the things I noticed was like, oh, budget cuts, got to do these things. These things can't happen anymore. And so it seemed like the football team just had bad timing. They couldn't get on board at the right time to get any traction. But yeah, it's the stuff of legend. It really, and so I'm gonna talk to Emma. We gotta dig up some football photos and put them on a throwback Thursday and see what people say.
I assume no chance we'd ever get a football team again at this point.
Seems unlikely. I don't know. Never know. I guess we need a football stadium. We got a nice turf field, but we don't I don't know how you get it'd be really hard, I think, to start a football team. I think you'd lose a lot of games 40 to nothing your first couple
Most likely.
years.
Probably.
Yeah. But here's hoping. Yeah.
That's how you build a championship, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Go through the lean years.
Yes. Eventually you'll get there. So
So before we get you out of here, we always ask our Oswego guests specifically about food because we're old now. We've gained some weight because we ate entirely too many chicken patties back in the day.
oh, yeah.
Do you go to the dining hall at all when you're on campus and kind of indulge in some chicken patty sandwiches?
I have been known to. As a matter of fact, we watch for it. Again, Jim Kearns, you can ask him about this. He at one point could tell you when every chicken patty day was for the semester going forward. I don't normally have time to eat in a dorm. I'll do it once or in Lakeside or Cooper. And Cooper used to have the ice cream. Then they got rid of the ice cream for some reason for a few years, and then it was like, so they wouldn't necessarily go back there. If I'm lucky, I get there once or twice a year. It's just trying to find the time. But chicken pat now they're serving patty in Rhino Campus Center and upstairs, so it's now available everywhere. But yeah, the food is good. It's like I try to eat salads, and make salads at home, and it's really joyless. I'd much rather go um, to the campus center and eat in the food court. And they do some really good stuff. They do some excellent mac and cheese. They have for a while. They have mac and cheese bar, which is there's no alcohol involved, but you can put on like bacon or buffalo chicken. You can put on healthy stuff too. Like
So
I will
unfair.
throw broccoli on there to say, look, I eat healthy. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but they're trying, more international food, which is always a lot of fun. So the food is still good. Weigh a lot more than I did when I started working there, that's for sure.
do you have a spot off campus anywhere in the Oswego area that you'd like to indulge?
Um, Best burgers in the world are at the press box, yes. So that's a good one because if I do want to catch a game, I'm in a fantasy baseball league with a bunch of other professors, administrators, and some retired people, and that's always where our draft is always always there. So I have a loyalty to the prep, plus like it's the Canali family, Mary Canali and Steve and that type of thing. So like when my kids, like when my brother Colin and I go there, and we take when he's in town, we take our kids, Mary make sure that they're taken care of. So yeah, I mean, that is my general favorite. I actually do like Southern Fare, which is the new place. Has some good stuff. I don't get there nearly enough. Kiyomi, which does the Pan Asian, is also really good. I'm also a diner guy. I just, you know, don't get up early enough or feel like getting out of bed early enough to go to Wade's anymore because the time is long. Because now that the Ritz, I live in more or less the neighborhood of the Ritz Diner, and that closed. Um, and so I don't, get out there as much. I don't mind, Tully's tenders are a good hit and run thing. There's solid supporter of the Lakers as well. So yeah, there's not there's so many places to eat. We are blessed or cursed by that, depending on our health regimens. But yeah, if I had to pick one, if I was told you can only go to one place it'd be hard. But I think Press Box would probably be it mainly for their burgers. Though I mean, their pizza's good too. Riverwalk Pizza's good. And obviously, we all love Azteca. So I can't do margaritas. Tequila and I don't get along, but everything else is good. So
Fantastic. Well, Tim, now I'm hungry. Now I'm like
I'm
Yeah,
really
sorry.
me
hungry
too.
So am
right
I.
now.
So am I. What are you talking about?
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It was a real blast looking back on talking some Laker hockey and learning more about how you present Oswego to the world. So thank you so much, and we will definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. This is fun. Thank you so much.
And that was the director of communications at SUNY Oswego, also a media copywriting and digital storytelling professor at the college, Tim Nekritz. That was great. Looking back on Laker hockey, and it is pretty interesting to see how he sees Oswego and how to put Oswego in the public eyes. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, considering, he didn't go to school there, but he's worked there for a long time. He got his
Yeah.
master's there, obviously. So he's, he has a different perspective than, we do, for instance, or, a lot of other people do. But he also has a long knowledge of big or large knowledge of the history of the school as well.
I was very interested to hear some of the like backstories of like Romney and like the football team. Jason asked him about the football team, and I can't wait to see if he can find some photos. Maybe they can throw it up like he said on a Throwback Thursday or something like that. I think it'd be really cool.
So Chris mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that he had just gotten back from Arizona on vacation, and that was weather was playing havoc with him way out
Uh,
there, or
uh,
especially
On the way
Chicago.
back.
yeah. So we had, first of all, it's the last time I'm ever gonna fly through Chicago. Like what O'Hare is the worst because this is not the first time I've had any sort of delay at O'Hare, and it's always been weather related, whether it's in the summertime with tornadoes or in the wintertime with snow accumulating on the wing that they had to de-ice it twice. Twice they had to de-ice it.
Oh
It's
man.
like, dude, come on. And there's like a million planes and trying to do the same thing. So it's like 2 hours later, we finally were able to take off. And then, we come home and it's blizzarding here. So cool. Great
Well, I mean,
weather.
think about it. Would you rather de-ice your plane? Otherwise, you're going to end up upside
Oh,
down. So,
100%. Yeah, I don't want to end up upside down on the runway. I'd rather not. I was annoyed, but I appreciated that. Yes, we're going to de-ice the plane again, just so that we can get up in the air
were you
and get
sitting on the
Shakir
plane
found
when
us.
they had to de-ice the
Oh
plane?
yeah, we were on. So let me back up. Before we even got de-iced, the maintenance folks had to come onto the plane because there was a broken
I hate
something
when
or
that
another
happens. Nothing pisses me off more than that kind of
in the
thing.
bathroom. All right, in the rear of the plane in the bathroom, there was something broken. So they like the water wasn't running or something like that. So we were delayed there for like that took 20 minutes. Okay. And then they de-iced the first time. So we're pulling out, we're taxiing, and we're waiting because there's like five planes in front of us. Well, this is your captain speaking. Unfortunately, we have to de-ice again because the first de-ice did not work. Sorry about that. So they de-iced again, and finally, 2 hours later, we were delayed 2 hours.
Sitting on the plane the whole time.
Whole time.
To quote Don Rickles in Casino, better down here than up there.
Very true.
One of the
Very
greatest
true.
movies. Just one of the best ever. Don Rickles.
So anyway, it's an exciting time of year, guys. We got some playoff hockey coming up. We got some baseball under the sun.
That's right.
So we're turning the corner. Turning the corner.
I'm ready for it.
Here we
The
go.
weather better turn the corner too, real
Oh,
soon.
man.
Enough with this lake effect. Get out of here.
We're getting nothing really.
Oh,
I
lucky
had
you.
Shut
I had
up.
Seriously.
there was talk there was talk this week that we were going to get some huge storm on Thursday, and now that's apparently gone by the wayside. So
Yeah, it shifted south and out to the
Yeah.
Out to the Atlantic, I believe.
Yeah,
But
so now we're
I
not
believe
getting
the
anything.
Ozarks are going to get blasted with snow. I saw too. So
I don't care. I was just like, my only concern is I like the snow. and I want the snow, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, but then my kids are gonna have a snow day, and then they're home, and I got to work, and that doesn't work out well for me.
All right. I think that'll do it for this edition of the Throwing Bagels podcast. You can check out our website, throwingbagels.com. Email us, throwingbagelspodcast@gmail.com. All of our socials are on our website. You name it, we're there. So check us out. YouTube, check that out, please. Like and subscribe. It really helps us out if you take the time to do that. So look
Indeed.
for us online and on YouTube, and we post a lot of great stuff there. Not just the podcast, but we have different video clips of different, 2-3 minutes at a time. We put them on there on the web for your viewing pleasure. So check them out. And until next time, Jason,
Bye.
Chris.
Bye.
See you later.